So here's a great question. Here's a question that I think is important. For me, when I started, it was extremely confusing. Like when you're talking about the 3 groups of customization, how does somebody get educated on that? To me, like I remember I studied it and I looked at it and I did selections until I went to the factory and saw the actual construction. Like other than going to the factory, or maybe that's it, like go visit different factories. What are your thoughts on that as far as getting educated on the different levels?
So Tony, there's no substitute for a factory visit.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of times what are we dealing with is paper, right? Emails, submittals, everything's documented. It's a, it's a spreadsheet, it's a table, it's a PDF. Having the ability to walk the factory floor, seeing how the units are, the process, the equipment that makes the actual product, and seeing it come together. And also, it's not just the finished product, but it's the entire process, the lean manufacturing process that ends to the finished product. And then we always have, in all of our facilities, we have job-specific testing that allows us to take these units at the end of the production and put them on the side. It allows us to power them up and actually demonstrate the performance in terms, as I mentioned earlier, from high statics, low leakage, to acoustics, to vibration. So there's really no substitute to seeing the entire manufacturing process.
So factory visits extremely important, right? I know it totally like changes my whole perspective. Mark, what's your 2 cents on factory visits? What's your experience been with that?
Yeah, factory visits are gold. I mean, in terms of what we do every day, one from the education standpoint, but just for customers to be able to put their hands on units, see what's going through the plant, and it sets manufacturers apart. I mean, I'll probably talk a little bit later in detail on that, but there's all sorts of different manufacturers out there, and certainly you get a good feel for who the manufacturer of choice is when you go visit their facility.
Yeah, that's a good segue into, one of my thoughts were like, I can produce a really nice submittal right here at my desk, and I could produce a really nice selection here, but there's a big difference between doing that and actually manufacturing and producing a unit that, is going to work well and is done from experience. And, the last time I checked, there's what I consider 4 major big box manufacturers, right? The standard big box people. And then last time I looked, I did a Google search for custom air manufacturers. There was like 40 of them. I mean, they're all over the place. There's most of them are smaller and regional. And I'd say in the custom world, there's your top couple of companies as well. So Mark, what is like your experience? Like, I always caution engineers, don't pick a custom air handling unit manufacturer because they happen to be 10 miles from the job site, right? Make sure you go and check them out. And I know, Mark, you've got some experience with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, just visiting a manufacturer, you really get to see what's behind, the marketing and, the software, and you get to see, how they're set up, how they're testing units, what's the research and development like, and ultimately the people as well. So, I think you made the statement at one point, Tony, when you and I were talking about not all custom manufacturers are equal. And that's accurate. I mean, there's certainly a lot of great lines out there, and when we look at our line card, and we take great pride in representing products that are going to put customers' needs and at the forefront. And not all customers, some are what I would call assemblers, not manufacturers. They're simply buying components and pieces and parts and putting them together. Others are controlling their supply chain by building a lot of their own components. So that ultimately, they can customize a unit to meet the end user's goals and the project goals. And ultimately, I always say something today that's much different than it was years ago. I would say capacity is king. If I'm looking at building or specifying a job right now in today's world, I'd save myself a lot of time in terms of redesign expectations by specifying manufacturers that can build the product in the time frame that's needed. There's a lot of folks out there with 50+ week lead times. And, I would recommend folks ask, as you're designing a job, hey, what is the lead time? And it's not just the lead time for the first unit. If you've got 20 units on a job, what's the capacity of that manufacturer? And how many units a week can you build? As I've talked to folks all the time, it's like, oh, they can build them in 38 weeks. It's like, that's 38 weeks for one. And when you start adding 20 and they're only producing 4 a week, start adding that out. So there's a lot of new dimensions. But I think, again, going back to that, go visit your you go visit your manufacturers, those that you're considering putting in a specification, or if you're an owner, those that you're considering buying, go see what they're made of. When you see their facilities, it's going to speak volumes for who they are.
Yeah, 100%. I never thought about it in terms of, you just explained it, so a lot of, if you're listening to this, you haven't done a lot of custom jobs. Some of them are very large. There might be 50 units on the job. And what Mark is saying is like something I don't think about very often, but the first unit, we get you that in 14 weeks. Then we're going to do 2 for the next 3 months, and then 2 in 3 months. So you got to be careful of making sure that that's all planned out. So thanks for that.